Hey, and I'm super glad that you guys joined me today. I am here with Lisa Bronner. And if you're looking at my picture here, you're looking at a copy of her new book that just came out on Tuesday of this week. And from what I understand, it's already in the Earth Fairs all across America, and it's in bookstores as well. So you can pick up your copy right now. But Lisa Bronner is the granddaughter of Dr. Emmanuel Bronner, who's the founder of all of those amazing Sal Suds and all of the Castile soaps that we love so much. They're the magic soaps, and it's the top selling natural brand of soaps in North America. And as we were just beginning to get ready for this show, I was talking to Lisa, and Lisa was telling me that not only are they in America, but lo and behold, they're in 42 countries across the world. Holy smokes. So we're in for a huge ride today. I'm really excited that we've got Lisa back. She was on our show a couple of years ago, and you guys gave me raving reviews. And I was just so excited when she was willing to come back and say hello to us again. Yay! This is like Christmas for me. So hello, Lisa Bronner. How are you today?
Thanks so much for having me, Angela. I am great. It's been a fun and busy week with the book launching, and of course, keeping up with all the other questions that come in about soap. And so I'm just happy to be back here with you.
Well, thanks so much for your time and attention. I have so many questions. Now, you just wrote a book called Soap and Soul, and I read it, and it is an amazing book. By the way, I'm curious to know why the title.
Well, I want people to see a big picture when it comes to how we care for ourselves and our spaces and the intangibles in our lives. And I've talked for years about how to make cleaning products and routines for taking care of yourself. But I wanted in this book for people to see a bigger, more holistic picture. What does it all fit into? And it fits into this bigger life of simplicity, of mindfulness, of being careful about what we bring into our lives, what we allow into our lives, not just in the products that we use, but also in the influences that we have in our head and in our heart. And so the book has lots of practical tips. And if you pick it up just to get some recipes, then that'll be great. But it also has a lot about how, the toxins that we allow into our lives sometimes are ones that we can't see. They're not even chemistry. They're, their voices and their influences. So it is about soap, but it's also about our souls.
Well, and it's a really overall reaching picture of a whole bunch of stuff. I was really amazed when I read the book, and I read it on an airplane. And I was sitting there saying to myself, this is really phenomenal, because I think it's the most thorough account of all of the different types of labeling for different products. Like we say, this product is natural. And I know from the house cleaning perspective, when we go in a customer's home, we want to say, oh, we're using all natural chemicals on your house. And what does that mean?
Right. And that's the thing. We as consumers, when we go into a store, we are bombarded with messages from labels, and there are words in there. And it's really the only, or the primary way of communicating with us from manufacturers to consumers is the message on the label, both the words and the imagery, the colors, the fonts, even the sheen. There's all these factors that contribute to a label. And to be a savvy consumer, we need to know how to read those labels to decide, are we going to believe this product? Is it making a valid claim? Does this word actually have meaning? Is it substantive, or is it mere, psychological imagery or influence? So you mentioned the word natural, which has no meaning when it comes to labels. Anything can be called natural. There's no regulation of it. And so that one's, one to dismiss. But a word such as organic, if it has a USDA certification seal with it, that one has some meaning. So there is a ton to learn. It's a big headache. I acknowledge that. And I try in my book to give people a bit of a guide for how to interpret it all. But even I will tell you that it's a lot to take in. And I've tried to digest it and make it a little bit easier for people, but it's a lot.
Well, I liked your visuals, because you had like a little bunny, for example, and you're like, if you see this bunny, this one's fake. This one's real, this one's fake. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've probably been tricked by that myself.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah. And what we're talking about is certification seals. So, those nice little logos or symbols that indicate something. And there are official ones that come from an actual certifier, like Leaping Bunny, that has a particular bunny in its certification that a product is cruelty-free and has not been tested on animals. But if somebody just has a different bunny, then and they're making the cruelty-free claim, they're not lying, because they're like, well, we're not saying we're certified by Leaping Bunny, but they certainly are trying to imply, yeah, that they are by using a different style of bunny, that they do have a certification as cruelty-free when they don't. And what all a consumer can do is familiarize themselves with what the true certifications are, so they can disregard the rest. You know, it takes my mind to the idea of I don't know if this is true, but it's a great anecdote, so I'll use it anyways. That people who are charged with investigating counterfeit money, that they prepare themselves by studying the real money and being so familiar with the real money that they can identify what's not that. And it's kind of what we have to do with certifications and those seals, is study the real ones, the USDA organic, the vegan action, cruelty-free, so that you know what the real ones look like. And then when you see others, those are just pretty little pieces of artwork that somebody in marketing designed.
Well, I know that the South Suds, which is a big popular product for all the professional house cleaners that are probably watching us today, and all the Airbnb owners and everybody else that's a big fan of your products. I know that South Suds is like one of the top products that we use for cleaning hardwood floors. And it has the all-one, let me see if I can show you this.
Yeah.
All-one. Tell us about this logo and how this came to be.
Yeah, so that is a logo for my family's company, Dr. Bronner's Magic Soaps, and its other name is All One God Faith, and that came from my grandfather's own personal journey, which is a story in itself. It's in the end of the book, actually, of how he had a personal mission to unite all people together, to realize that they had a lot in common, more than they had differences. And so in that logo that represents the hands reaching around the world to clasp, that indicating that we are all, as he would say, brothers and sisters traveling together on spaceship Earth, and we are all one. So he's trying to capture that with both the earth and the hands. He actually, that logo like goes all the way back to when he was running the company. We maybe stylized it a little bit differently, but the logo was his.
I love that. So that is a mission, though, that you have continued throughout your blog and throughout all of your advocacies, throughout all of your communications with the world for the last several, I'm going to say several decades.
75 years we're celebrating this year as a company.
This is so amazing. So share with me, I don't know that you were always on this journey. I remember there was a time in a story in one of the early parts of your book where you were talking about that you just grew up thinking like everybody is on the soap mission and everybody knows what it's all about. When you were like, well, wait a second, it's not quite the case.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so my grandfather was Dr. Bronner, founded the company in 1948, and it was his thing. It was not something that my immediate family was involved with in a day-to-day way. My dad, who was also a chemist, he did oversee the actual soap making, but as far as the business side of the company, that was all my grandfather. Not only was it not on our radar, but it just wasn't even part of my like consciousness. What he was doing, what that was all about. You know, I was honestly, I think, just not interested. And I went on my own journey, pretty conventional, graduated high school, went to college. And it was when I became a parent that I began to take a closer look at things around me and realizing, wait a second, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what's going on in these products that I'm using. My son had a scary exposure to cleaning products at one point. And I kind of circled back and realized, I think my grandfather was onto something here. And so it was when I personally, had to travel my own road and come back to, what he had been doing all along. Would have been easier and more straightforward if I had just, listened to him in the first place. But that just wasn't what happened. And so I realized that the idea of simplicity, of back to nature with your ingredients, as close to nature as you possibly can with plant-based ingredients and such. And that he really was so far ahead of his time with advocating for all of that starting in the 40s. And he really was regarded as quite eccentric for his time, but he was right.
Well, not only just a book that's brand new, that's out on the market, that I think is going to be one of the coolest books of all time, as far as all of the green it yourself recipes that are inside. But tell me, you also wrote a blog and have really been advocating this message for a long time. Tell me about how you started that and how that process has continued this message onto where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. I mean, we are a family company. So the Dr. Bronner's is still family run, family owned. And I think it's pretty typical with family companies that when there's a task to do, you just find someone to do it, whether it fits what they think their job description is or not. And so people end up wearing very different hats. And so at one point, my brother Mike, who's now currently company president, he was doing, oh my goodness, sales, inventory, customer service, and some product development. Like all of that was kind of in his wheelhouse. And if you've seen a Dr. Bronner's label up close, you know it says a lot. We have a lot to say. My grandfather had a lot to say to people. There's a lot of words on there. Well, we can't really be surprised that when we say a lot to our customers, they want to say a lot back. So I know, my goodness, the Castile soap has even more than the Salsets. So our customers,
I have to say that you guys should get an award for the most words on a label ever, because every single one of these labels is just like all the words, and then it has more words, and then it has more words, and you're like, wait a second, I've got reading glasses on.
Absolutely. Well,
and take a picture of your phone and blow it up, but this is amazing.
Well, there's a little magnifier app on phones. It really helps.
Right.
In the quart size, they're all different too. The 5-quart scents that came out in my grandfather's lifetime, all that little writing, it's different on every one. So you have to read all 5 quarts to get like.
And he wrote all of that, or somebody wrote all of that before ChatGPT.
Yeah. Right. He was like his own ChatGPT. Yeah.
There you go.
And he went, so he wrote that and the label was just as important to him as the contents of the bottle. Soap was the messenger, the label was the message. And that's its own story. But he wrote it all, he put it on the label, and he actually went blind before I was born. I never knew him when he could see, and he had that label all in his head, all the labels, and he would make edits to it, because he could remember every part of it.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I'm so sorry. You asked me about my own history. So everybody's doing all these different jobs. And my brother just said, could you take over customer service? I had kids at home, and he said, you could do it in the middle of the night when they're asleep, whatever. And I can't keep up with all the email that's coming in. And so that's how I started. And people asking questions. How do I use the soap? What's the best for my situation? My acne, my baby, my sensitive skin, my oily skin. How do I wash my dog, my hair, my car? And so all of those questions eventually led me to write a blog called Going Green with Lisa Bronner, where I answer those questions en masse. People keep asking more, which I love. And that was 13 years ago. And so after writing the blog for so long, I have the blog in my head. I know that, of the hundreds of articles on there, I've got one for you on that topic, but I wanted to be able to give it to people who are interested all in one spot, which is why I wanted to write a book that was altogether comprehensive. You can keep it at your fingertips.
Well, I love the fact that you were willing to go to places that you'd never gone before, because in the process of doing that, I'm guessing that part of your own experience came out. I know that in reading your book, there were things that made my heart dance with joy when I read them. I was like, yes, there was a moment where you were talking about cluttering and disorganization. And you said, as a new mom, you were holding your child on your hip and you were just trying to keep him from fussing. And you said, there I was frustrated because I wanted my house to be tidier. And you were having this moment, I think, that speaks to all moms that are kind of a little bit overwhelmed and they need a second set of hands. And they're like, how am I going to make this work? And you made a comment that really hit home with me. You said, I realized I didn't have 2 hands because you're holding your son with 1 hand. But you said, I didn't have none. I had another hand that was free. And I realized I could start tidying up with that one hand. And that spoke volumes to me, because there are so many people that are living a life of excuses. They're like, oh, I can't do that. I'm overwhelmed. I just have too much going on. And you're like, hey, hey, whoa, whoa, whoa. I can do what I can do where I am, starting with the resources that I have available to me right now, which in this moment is one hand.
That's absolutely right. I mean, personally, I was paralyzed because I was so focused on what I could not do, and that I had been able to do in my pre-parent days, or that particular son was my second son, so I could do some things with one kid that I couldn't do once I had two. And I was so focused on, I can't do what I used to be able to do, I can't do what I want to do, that I was doing nothing. My house was a wreck. Mentally, I was frazzled. I was so frustrated. Little things would set me off. And it really was that moment of just shifting my focus from what I can't do to what I can. And what is the next step I can take? Whatever that next step is, if it's, a physical, go here and do this. And then after that, what's the next step? And don't worry about the distant horizon and the big goal. Just take the next step and see what happens. And eventually, I got somewhere, and I think anybody can too. My grandfather's own story was very inspirational to me. He had every reason not to do it, not to have a full and productive life. I mean, anyone would have excused him for just like trying to survive and sit quietly in the corner. He immigrated to the United States from Germany when he was 21. His family was well established in Germany, but they were Jewish, and they were utterly destroyed by World War II. His sisters escaped. His parents did not. They perished in concentration camps. The family's soap factories in Germany were confiscated when they were Aryanized. And then in the United States, he married, had 3 kids. That was wonderful. But then his wife had a breakdown and eventually died when my dad was 7. He had his own health issues. He was arrested because he sounded so crazy talking about world peace and return to nature. Nobody was ready to hear that in the 40s. He lost his eyesight. I mean, he had so many things to look at and say, I can't do anything. Look at my life. And yet he kept moving forward and finding what he could do. And he, using his voice and making his soap. And, if he can do that, and I haven't had nearly the trauma that he had in his life, then surely I can find the next step forward in my own life.
Well, he's not with us today, but he would be so proud of you for taking his message and spreading that to the world. Because little did he know at that time that his products would reach 42 countries around the globe, and that it would become the national best-selling natural soap in the United States. I mean, that's huge. And how did he know that at that time? He didn't and would have no way of knowing that. But to watch the legacy that he created, doing what he could do with the resources that he had available to him, and then watching the family carry that message on. Because right now, we are in an era right now, 2023, where people more than ever are very conscientious of what they're putting into their bodies. They're like, wait a minute, there are so many chemicals that are in the air, and people have allergies like nobody's business. And the air is not getting cleaner all by itself. And the water we drink is not getting cleaner by itself. And the stuff that we're dumping into the lakes and the streams and the rivers, it's not getting cleaner by itself. And so I think everybody's becoming more consciously aware, like, hey, wait a second, maybe I can do my own little part. And what is that? And I love this book because there are a lot of misconceptions about, as a professional house cleaner, oh, I'm going to go green. And then what does that mean?
Right. I mean, that's almost the what's the opposite of a silver lining? Like the dark side of something becoming popular is that then you have a lot of people wanting to jump on the bandwagon who either intentionally are misleading or with the best of intentions are misinformed or aren't educated in what they're talking about. And so they're offering advice that isn't valid. And as much as I don't want people to be upset with me, I also need to debunk some of the common myths. For example, you can't just go mixing 2 green cleaners together and thinking you're making a better cleaner. that, like, one of the first questions I ever wrote a blog about, still one of my most popular. I mean, blog articles are not supposed to be enduring. They're supposed to, you write them and then people read them for a little bit and then they stop reading them. This one people still read, and it's why you cannot mix Castile soap with vinegar. Those are both excellent products and that people can do a lot with in their house, but they should not be mixed together because vinegar is an acid and it unsaponifies soap. It breaks soap down into its original ingredients, which is oil. So when you mix vinegar and soap, you're getting a gunky concoction that is very oily. And so, people do that with the best of intentions, but they need to understand that one doesn't work. And there are others like that. Some are more dangerous. That one's just messy.
I'm glad you said the word dangerous, because you did something that you were willing to do in your book that I was not willing to do, and that's become really unpopular. You said, you know what, I'm going to tell you that this is dangerous. And I was kind of like, if I say something, I'm going to upset some house cleaners that are trying to make a living being a TikToker or something. But I see people mixing chemicals in a really dangerous sort of fashion. And they're like, hey, wow, check this out. And they're plugging 20 and 30 chemicals on top of each other. And the colors are amazing and whatever. And it looks like paint. And I sit there and like my eyes turn red and my nose clogs up just watching the video. And I'm like, no, you didn't. And I just want to pick up the phone and I want to call the person and say, stop being so irresponsible. This is one of the worst things that you could do in the name of entertainment, because there are people out there that don't know any better. And they're watching this and they're thinking, oh, because they did it. And wow, look how clean the toilet came when they were done. I can do this myself. And my message has always been, you are not a chemist. You are not a chemist, and chemists go to school and then they go into a lab controlled environment so that they can learn and practice what they did in a controlled environment where if something malfunctions, they've got eye wash stations and they've got people that can call 911 and all those things. Do not in the privacy of your own home, experiment with these things. Right. And I hate it because in the professional cleaning world, you walk down an aisle and you see all these things with fancy promises. And house cleaners, I don't know why, but they erroneously think this worked so well on one thing. If I mix this one over here, it will work twice as good. No, it does not.
Yeah. I want to make a shirt, a hat, a scarf that says chemistry happens, because I think people don't realize this. Chemistry happens. You mix two things together and there's going to be a reaction. And yeah, there is a section in my book where I talk about dangerous cleaning mixtures, and I've written about them online, and people say, oh, you're giving people instructions on how to make dangerous things. I'm like, no, I'm actually going after the people who think they're doing great things, making a great cleaner, taking care of their house and making it better for the people living there. They're actually doing the reverse. They could actually hurt themselves or the people they live with. I mean, mixing bleach with anything. I think bleach and ammonia has had a lot of attention. That's a bad one. That makes mustard gas. But also mixing bleach with alcohol, mixing bleach with vinegar. Like, don't mix things together.
Yeah. Can we say one thing right now for anybody that's watching and anybody that watches the replay, and once and for all, please do not mix bleach with anything. You can dilute it with water, but please do not mix it with anything ever under any circumstances. And if you forget that, please call me or text me and I will remind you. Okay. Because that's not cool. Right. I'm glad we got that out of the way.
You can write to me too, because that's the thing. I think people think, as you said, this is good and this is good, so together they must be better. That's not how it works. The other thing that I think people are mistaken about is when they see products that do the same thing. This is a carpet cleaner and this is a carpet cleaner, therefore they must have the same ingredients in them. So it's okay if I have a little bit of this one, a little bit of that one to put them together. That is not the case. A manufacturer might claim that they do the same thing, but the chemistry involved, the ingredients that they put in are different. You cannot mix them together. So it's one of the messages I really hope people take away is that chemistry happens. And even mixing with Castile soap, which is a beautiful, simple product, but there are some things that you shouldn't mix with it. Vinegar, as I've said, Epsom salts. This is body care a little bit more than house care, but you can't mix Epsom salts with Castile soap either. And bleach, of course, as we've said, don't mix bleach. Even with Castile soap, there's a reaction that takes place. So,
in your book, you have 85 green it yourself recipes. And now tell us about that and tell us what is the difference between that and mixing two commercial cleaning products together.
Yes, what green it yourself is it's a phrase I came up with, obviously off of DIY to
I love
tell.
it.
Thank you. I forget sometimes that I made that one up, and I use it, and people are like, "What is DIY?" I'm like, "Oh, okay." Anyhow, but it's the idea of take control of what you're doing. Take control of your cleaners, so you know what you're bringing into your house. You know what you're exposing yourself to. You know what you're exposing your housemates, your pets, whatever, to, just so you have more control, because there is no required ingredient disclosure in cleaning products in the United States. You have no idea what is in most of the cleaning products unless they have a really high hazard ingredient, in which case it gets the hazard warning on the label. So green it yourself means you take control and you know what you're using. And so that's where the 85 recipes come from. A lot of them use Dr. Bronner's soap, Castile soap, and the Salsets. But then a lot of them are unrelated to our products, just tips for ways to take care of your house. You always want to use the least intensive means needed to do the job. You don't need to ratchet things up really high to get a job done. So you always, not only for the sake of the surface, not to corrode it or etch it or degrade it, but also for the safety of you. It's this risk benefit analysis. Something like soap or Salsets, those are cleaners that remove, they're surfactants. That will take care of most situations, most messes, most grime, most surfaces. We do not need to disinfect everything. We do not need to sanitize everything, because those have their risks, and the risks are not merited in most situations. We're not doing, for the most part, surgery in our homes. We're not eating off of our floors. We don't need to disinfect these things. And so the recipes, they're really simple. Sometimes I'm like, oh, this is too simple, I shouldn't even say it. But no, I want people to know that these simple ways can work and do work and are all that's needed, and they don't need to make it more complicated. It saves their pocketbook, it saves the space in their cleaning cabinet, it saves their time, and it saves their health too. So the recipes are all very simple and easy to do.
I want to stop for just a second, highlight something that Lisa just said, because this is really, really important. She said, because it was so simple, I didn't feel like I should say it. But I want to highlight the fact that there's a whole entire generation right now that has grown up on TikTok. And what you think is real is what you see on TikTok. And I just went on a little rant about what I see on TikTok and how angry it makes me, because it's so incredibly irresponsible. People mixing chemicals that are toxic and that are incredibly harmful to the waterways and the earth once they flush that toilet. Okay. Bad, 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 bad. So what happens is that's a whole entire generation that grew up on electronics and watching things, and they think, oh, that's okay. Okay. A lot of those same people have never been taught how to clean. And every day in the cleaning industry, we run a training company that trains house cleaners and maids. And I can't tell you how many times a day embarrassed kids come to me and they say, I'm in my mid-20s and I hate to admit it, and I'm really embarrassed to say this, but I don't actually know how to clean at all. I was never taught. I was never showed. And so can you show me, or can you tell me, or how do I learn? And so we need to go back to the basics. And I love Lisa's book for this fact. It's very clear about, here are some recipes of things you can use. Here are some tactics that you can use. And she even goes into the decluttering end of things. Before we clean, you've got to declutter. And here's the mind-body connection between the decluttering and the cleaning. Share with us a little bit, if you will, on that while we're on that topic, because that was really interesting to me.
Yes, and this was something I stumbled into. I'm not a naturally organized person, and so I really have to think about organizing and decluttering. I have to be very intentional about it. It's not something I do involuntarily, and so it was a journey I went on. And the thing about clutter is that it gets in the way. This is really the biggest issue about it. It gets in the way of, first of all, being able to clean things if they're inaccessible because there's stuff on them. But it also gets in the way of the things we really need in our day-to-day lives. It takes longer to find them. We can't see them. We can't appreciate them. We're distracted by what's there and what's unnecessary. And eventually, for myself, as I was looking at clutter. I'm like, what is this? What is this? I mean, I can identify it piece by piece, but what is it? I realized that what my clutter were identities I have had that I no longer have, or identities I thought I might have, but I don't. And I bought stuff for those identities. So I used to teach high school. I had some high school teaching stuff sitting around my closets, lesson plans and various props and things like that were in my way. I used to do crafts that maybe I enjoyed at the time, but I don't anymore. And I used to have jobs that had various, objects associated with them and all these things, and they were important, but they're not now. And so once I started saying, I'm not a high school teacher anymore, I'm not a quilter anymore, it helped me to pull those identities out of my closets and off my shelves and decide, okay, who am I today, and what do I need for that identity? And once those identities were all that was there, it was just so much easier to access them, to appreciate them, and then of course physically to clean around them, because I just didn't have as much stuff in the way. I'm still working on this, because even now I'm shedding identities and taking off new identities and putting on new identities, and so it's an ongoing process.
And that's not weird. I'm glad that you brought that up. That's not weird at all, because if you look at a brand new baby, a baby is born and they're like this big. And that's an identity. They're a little baby. They do certain things. They cry, they poop, and they eat. That's it. Like, that's all they do. And then they grow up to be a little bit bigger. And then now they're like a toddler and they have a personality, and they're like, no. And then why? And they ask all these things, and they run around and they get into stuff and they pull drawers open and they're just curious. And it's a completely different personality and a completely different identity than it was when they were this big. And then they grow up, and as they grow up to be 9 or 10 years old, oh my goodness, they turn into something completely different than even the toddler. And you're like, no, you didn't just say that to me. I'm your mother. Don't you dare, And then they grow up to be a teenager, and then it's like, right here, and you're like, oh, no, you didn't. And then like the next 12 or 15 years is like really horrendous. But those are all different personalities and different identities. And that's natural. That is the human evolution process of us growing from being tiny to growing to be an adult. And so it would be really unusual for someone to think, well, because I was once this identity, I must always stay that identity. No, you don't. We evolve, we develop as humans, and the more information we have, the more evolved we become. And I think right now, this is a new evolution for all of us, where we're saying, I don't need the fragrance in my cleaning chemicals. Right now, I understand that clean has a particular smell. Tell us about the smell of clean. What is the fragrance for clean? I'm curious.
Oh, yes. The smell of clean is nothing at all. If something is truly clean, there's no debris on it, there's no grime or detritus from whatever, then there's nothing there to give a scent. So the smell of clean is a smell of nothing. Now, we like smells. I like scents, of course, but to think that those scents are clean is the opposite of what they are. If there's a scent there, that means there is a residue. There is a substance there that's giving off the scent. And so, and they're powerful. Our brain's recognition of scent is right there with its processing of emotion and memory. And so that's why scent is so evocative and so transportive. But it's all psychological. And so we do need to separate ourselves in our understanding from, oh, this smells clean because it's, smells like lemons or some fake lemon smell, or even because it's scouring the inside of my nose and making my eyes run, therefore it must be clean. No, I mean, think about that. That doesn't make sense. It means that there is something there that is on the surface or in the air. So fragrance is one of my big topics with people. You need to separate your understanding of clean from how things smell. Laundry detergent is often sold based on how it smells, but laundry detergent is supposed to clean fabrics, not leave things on fabrics. And what we have in our air, you were talking earlier about our interaction with the environment, the pollution inside our homes is usually, unless you live in a extremely polluted urban place. The pollution inside our homes in our air is far worse than what's outside. We've gotten really good at sealing up our houses in the name of efficiency to keep them hot or cold or whatever it is they're supposed to be. And so we've really gotten good at sealing up our houses, where we also are more and more comfortable in a very narrow temperature range. And so we shut the windows as soon as it drops, to below, I don't know, 65, and we shut the windows as soon as it gets warmer than 75. And if it's outside those, we don't allow fresh air. And we need to unthink that, because we have got to flush out our houses. Stuff gets in the air all the time, from fragrance, from cooking, from breathing, from all of these things, from textiles, outgassing. We need to clean up our air. And definitely the first thing is not to pollute your air intentionally with fragrance ingredients. So what's wrong with fragrance? Why am I so keen on getting rid of fragrance? Fragrance ingredients are, they're meant to be durable. The advertisement that your laundry will smell fresh for 3 weeks. How is that possible? The way it's possible is because there are ingredients that make the scent very durable, very enduring. It doesn't break down. It stays. That's what's happening. If it goes into your body because you breathe it, which is meant to be breathed, then it's going to stay there and not break down. Our bodies cannot process that. Now, our bodies are incredibly resilient. We can put up with a lot, but day in, day out, repeated exposure, this can add up to a lot. And more people are acknowledging they're having, breathing issues, maybe even full-blown asthmatic issues because of the scent of products. And it's because they do impact our bodies. They're not just a little thing that's right here in our nose. They penetrate. And so we need to dial that back, to reduce the fragrance, to acknowledge that the smell of clean is the smell of nothing at all.
And I'm glad you explained that so well, because when we go into a customer's house as a professional house cleaner, it's kind of like when you have a headache. If you've matched it with, I don't know, some kind of an ibuprofen or an Aleve or I don't know, whatever the over-the-counter things are that make your headache kind of like numb to you, it removes the need for you to take a look at, wait a second, what caused that headache?
Yeah.
And so when we mask the headache, for example, I'm talking about a headache for a second, what happens is, instead of us saying, wait a second, I didn't really cure it, I didn't remove the root of it, I just kind of numbed it for a little bit, then what happens is we're going to eat the same foods, or we're going to not get enough sleep, or we're going to be dehydrated, or whatever it caused it in the first place. And then our go-to is we take more of the same. And the exact same thing happens when we keep masking smells. We're just masking it. And so if you go into a home and you're cleaning someone's home and you walk in and you're like, something smells a little unusual in here. What is that? Because I'm looking around, I'm not seeing anything. Is there something that's dead inside under the cabinets? Is there something that was left like in one of the drawers or one of the bathrooms, and maybe it's like starting to turn moldy or mildew? Like what is that smell, and where is it coming from? And so if we don't keep masking the smells, it's going to help us recognize things a whole lot sooner. I know that one of the challenges that many homeowners have is mold in their homes. And because they can't smell the mold, they're like, oh, it's not there. If I don't smell it, it's not there. Or they're in denial. If I can make it like not smell like that, then it's not there. We've got these musty basements, and you go in there and guess what? There's actually mold growing on the sides of the wall of your basement. And that can really contribute to your illness and poor health. And so don't be just like spraying stuff like on the carpets. And there are TV commercials. I kid you not. There are TV commercials of just like, take this spray and spray it on your sofas and spray it, on the carpets and whatever, and everything smells lovely again. Yay, it's cured. It's not cured. You're just masking it. And so I'm really glad we had this conversation today, because, well, don't get me started, because that's my rant too.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. You've got to get to the source of the problem, because sometimes, it's not just a bad smell. It's actually something harmful. I mean, if it's mold, if it's, okay, so one of my current identities right now is cat wrangler. I'm having an issue with my 2 female cats. They're not happy with each other. So I end up cleaning up some cat issues. If I just, mask that smell, that would be like extremely unhygienic. You have got to go and figure out where it's coming from and clean it. Don't just cover it up.
I've got a couple of questions that have come in. I want to say hey to everybody that's jumped in and joined us here. I really appreciate your comments today, and thanks for being here. Cedo Sky says, I have multiple chemical sensitivities with CFS/ME, so I'm always just use baking soda and unscented holistic cleaners, albeit expensive. So excited to learn new ways with old basics. I know that you have a whole section on cleaning with baking soda and other things like that. Share with us a little bit about what some of the sensitivities are that we can remove by cleaning with holistic or natural products. And I say natural, tongue in cheek. I shouldn't have said that word, but you know what I mean? Safer products.
On the label. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Well, the thing is, and it's funny because while I did write a new book, a lot of this is old wisdom. Soap itself is a very old substance. Mankind has known how to make soap for millennia. It's one of its oldest like intentional chemical reactions. And so it is new, but it's returning to the old. So the issue here is that a lot of cleaners, you can actually be guided by hazard labels on them. If they say they're harmful to the skin, like that means that even accidental exposure or slight residues on surfaces, that sort of thing is going to be a problem for somebody who's already sensitive. Whether the sensitivity is diagnosed with a specific name or just they've noticed something's not right there. And so once again, we want to dial things back. One of the reasons why I do recommend, keep it simple, use natural soaps or very mild detergents in your cleaning, and things like baking soda, vinegar, is because they break down so easily, not only in the environment, but also when they're exposed to our bodies. And one of the problems with the more complex synthesized ingredients is that our bodies can't process them, and they're very durable. So a very, very common ingredient in conventional cleaning products is formaldehyde. And you will not see this on a label. Nobody's going to say they put formaldehyde, but there are many ingredients that are called formaldehyde releasers. They release formaldehyde into the solution the longer they sit on the shelf. And formaldehyde is very irritating to the skin. It is a known cause of allergic contact dermatitis. And so anybody who suffers from easy reactions, needs to look at whether their ingredients contain formaldehyde releasers. And these are super common ingredients. We're talking quaternium compounds, ureas, that super long preservative, the mesoisothiazolinones, which I've
They're all words that are this long.
I know, but and it's only up to the consumer to look for them. There are no regulations against them. Formaldehyde is also a known human carcinogen. That's a problem too, but honestly, what you will notice first is actually the allergic contact dermatitis. And so, keep it simple, dial it back. Don't use these complicated things that, first of all, you might not have known that these ingredients release something like formaldehyde. But if you dial it back to things that are closer to nature, things that are, a mineral like baking soda, sodium bicarbonate, it's a very simple ingredient that our bodies know what to do with, and when they come into contact with us, that don't cause this, flare up of, our body is trying to tell us that there's something wrong when it flares up. When we have an inflammation or a reaction, it's saying, I don't recognize this and I don't know what to do with it. So do something. And when we ignore those by, just carrying on and doing what we've always done, our body's going to, get really angry and set off a bigger alarm than it did already. So to keep it simple. There's no reason to use things that are really, really complicated. I am going against so much advertising and saying this. I have it a little easier. I live out in the country. We don't have cable. We can't have cable. And so I don't get, television advertising. It's really hard to ignore the advertising that's telling you how easy it is to use this product, how much you ought to use this product because it gets rid of all the germs. That needs to be ignored, and you need to look at the ingredients, learn for yourself. Unfortunately, there's nobody that's going to learn it for you and make the decisions that are best for you and for your household.
And I want to add one thing to what Lisa just said, because this is really important. The words, and it's true, when you try to read the ingredients on the safety data sheets, the words are like really long words. I'm going to call them $20 words because they're huge and they're very hard to understand. But they do have what's called a pictogram. And the pictogram is a little tiny red triangle. It's more or less a little warning label. And it's usually in section 2 of the safety data sheet. And so when you look at the safety data sheets and there's a little picture of like a guy and he's like choking to death, that's like not a good sign. And if his heart is exploding, that's not a good sign.
Not a good one.
And if they're like little dead fish that have popped out of the water, that's not a good sign. And so most of the pictograms will give you the hazard warning, and you'll look at the picture like, whoa, not good, not good. Okay. So keep it simple, but read the safety data sheets. And what's really cool right now is the safety data sheets by the globally harmonized system are pretty much available everywhere. And so if you're thinking about a new cleaning chemical and you type in the safety data sheet on Google, because we all have our phones at our fingertips, right? It will pop right up and you can look at all different 16 sections of that and you can see exactly what the safety hazards are. And you can see, look at the storage and disposal, because that's a dead giveaway. If it says something like, this can't be thrown away in a regular trash can and you have to take it to the landfill, guess what? That's a safety concern because it can't be disposed of like a regular pH neutral chemical, right? That means it's got to go down there where there's somebody that's licensed and they're trained to separate that into a hazard chemical, a chemical category. So there are things like that that you have to be aware of. And I love the fact that we're having this conversation. We do have a couple of questions. Somebody asks, can I mix Dawn and Sal Suds? And Dawn is a dishwashing soap.
Yes, yes. So as I said earlier, there is no required ingredient disclosure of cleaning products across the United States. California does have one, and I do live in California, so it's a little different for me here. But across the country, there is not. And so not even I, as a manufacturer of Sal Suds, knows what is in Dawn. So I can't speak specifically to the interaction of Dawn and Sal Suds, but honestly, I don't know why you would want to mix the two. There's nothing that Dawn can do on its own that Sal Suds can't, and there's nothing that Dawn will benefit Sal Suds by mixing the two together. So best to use them separately. There is no secret database that I have access to that tells me what's in Dawn, unless they choose to disclose it. Which, you know, other companies like Dr. Bronner have done so. But best don't mix cleaners, and you don't need to mix Dawn into Sal Suds.
I have a personal philosophy, and I'm glad that you brought that up. I have a personal philosophy about safety data sheets and what the disclosure is. If I see a product, and there's a really popular product on the market right now, and I won't use it, and I won't use it because I don't know what's inside, and they have a really vague safety data sheet, and it's like, it's got good stuff in it, and like how much of it we won't tell you. And I'm like, oh, and I'm not going to use it because I don't know what's inside. And that to me is really scary. And if you're not scared, you should be, because we live in an era right now where they're starting to make, check this out, soda pops that are crystal clear. They're removing the colors from them, and they're removing the dyes, and they're removing a lot of the stuff that has been known to cause angst in our bodies. We are becoming more consciously aware as a society that all of the chemicals stacking on top of each other, from laundry soaps to shampoos to deodorants to all the different stuff we use in our homes. It's becoming a toxic world that we live in. I say it's becoming, it's already a toxic world. But please, and this was great that Lisa brought this up. If you don't need two soaps, don't use two soaps. If you're going to use them individually, but don't use them both together. Not necessary. Right. But I do want to say something about Sal Suds, since I got it right here. And it happens to be the house cleaner's favorite soap of all time for hardwood floors. And literally, and I'm not kidding, one drop in your mop bucket. Do not use a squirt or you'll have suds everywhere. But tell us why this is so effective and why it makes hardwood floors shine.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sal Suds was a product that my dad came up with in 1975. My dad was a chemist, a self-trained chemist. He went to the school of curiosity and trial and error, and he developed Sal Suds as a result of his frustration with hard water in Los Angeles. And Castile soap, all soaps react with hard water. They're fine. It's the harmless reaction that doesn't cause any problems except that it leaves water spots. and it can make fabrics stiff, or anything that's supposed to be absorbent, like a towel would be stiff. And so he was really frustrated with the hard water in LA. And so he wanted to come up with a cleaner that was super effective no matter how hard your water was. And Salsuds was the result of that. He still wanted it to be extremely mild, extremely concentrated, so that it was valuable, and a little bit goes a long way. And so he's very careful about the blend of surfactants that he put in it. And so it is a detergent, but it's not, I mean, you never can make a generalization that soap is good, detergent is bad, because there could be good and bad of both. But it's a detergent, which means the molecule is much more stable. It doesn't react with hard water, and that it, but that it's also still extremely mild, and it's not too aggressive on skin or on your surfaces. And so the ingredients that he put in there are just the right blend, that they grab anything, any oil, and they are extremely clean rinsing, and they leave no residues behind. So hardwood floors, it's fantastic on them. All floors, I have a blend of hardwood and tile in my house. I actually also have carpet. And just this morning, I was using my carpet cleaner with that one drop of Salsuds. I promise you do not need more. You will have too many bubbles. And you never want to leave a cleaner on your floor, because a cleaner, a surfactant like Salsuds or Castile soap, it holds on to dirt. That's what it does. That's how it works. It holds on to dirt. And then when you rinse it, it rinses it away. But if you leave it there and you don't rinse it away, then you've just got the cleaner holding onto dirt, sitting there. And if more dirt comes along, it's going to hold on to more dirt, and then the surface actually will get dirtier. So you always want to make sure you get all the cleaner off of it. So Salsuds is all I use for laundry, for floors, for my car, for my dishes, anything in my house that needs washing. I wash it with Salsuds, my painted walls, all of that.
Yay. And that's not what this conversation was about, but because I know there's so many people that are so in love with Salsuds, I had to bring that up. And so somebody asks, and it's Myra, and she says, is this something I can use to clean floors that may not cause harm to my dogs?
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, first of all, you need so little of it to clean your floor. So there will not be very much there. And then it is extremely clean rinsing. That's why it was a feature my dad was most concerned about. And so it does not leave a residue there. The scent of Salsuds is from 2 essential oils, spruce and fir. And it makes a nice light pine scent, but there's nothing in it that makes it enduring, like I was talking earlier. It also rinses away. In fact, some people say, I wish your Salsud scent would stick around. And we're like, it's designed not to stick around. It's designed to be clean rinsing. So it would be excellent for not leaving any residues that could harm dogs or cats or babies or anything that would be in contact with the surface afterwards.
And speaking of babies, I remember one time inside a Lidl store, I'm walking inside Lidl and I see that in the baby section, they have some Castile soap from Dr. Bronner's. And I got so excited. I took a picture and I sent it to Lisa and I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are in my Lidl. And she's like, I know, we're everywhere.
I love it. Well, my grandfather made the unscented at the request of the UCLA maternity ward, because they wanted an unscented Castile soap for use with their patients. And so he already had the peppermint, lavender, eucalyptus at the time, I think. And so he just pulled the essential oils out, simple soap, very simple. And there was our unscented. So it was returning to its home by being in the baby section. I wanted to go back to the topic of ingredients you just mentioned, because another thing that is out there is this sort of faux disclosure. It's like a fake disclosure. You see an ingredient list, so you think, oh, it tells me the ingredients. But then if you read it, they're not ingredients, they're categories. So it'll say ingredients, surfactant, preservative, fragrance, but it doesn't tell you which surfactant or which preservative. And there are a huge range within these categories. So what are they not telling you? Why are they not willing to tell you what the specific ingredients are? And why are they trying to fool you into thinking, oh, we're disclosing our ingredients, when they're really not? Even if that says natural surfactant, not even quite sure what that would mean. But, it's just another thing that consumers have to be savvy about.
And in your book, you talk about something really interesting. You talk about longer lasting chemicals and wash away chemicals, as in shampoo for your hair, for example. Is it something that I'm going to put in my hair and then I'm going to wash it away? Or is it something that, like conditioner or a leave in conditioner, or something that I'm going to leave on for a long period of time? Tell us a little bit about that, because that was incredibly fascinating when you talk about the different chemicals that linger in your home.
Right, exactly. Well, when you're just getting started, especially in looking at your products and ingredients, it can be really overwhelming. Where do I start? I always want people to start with the products that they're exposed to the most, and those are, for personal care, our leave-on products, the ones that we put on and they stay for the day. Our deodorant, our lotions, our makeup, uh, sunscreen, things that, it's not just we're washing with soap. We can barely make it the 20 seconds to wash our hands, and then we rinse it off. I think it's important to look at those too, but more important to start with the ones that are leave on all day. And then, as you talked about earlier, talking about the layering and the cocktail effect of our chemicals. So you may look at your deodorant and say, oh, these all look just fine. You may then look at your lotion. Oh, these all look just fine. But there are some ingredients that are fine unless they're combined with other ingredients. And if you don't look at how those two are going to interact, then you could be thinking, this is fine and this is fine, therefore I could put them together. Just like we were talking, you can't combine cleaning products. You just have to be careful. I'm not saying don't wear both lotion and deodorant, but pay attention to both and how they might interact with each other. The same thing with what we have around our houses. The things that we use the most, that's where you should start with cleaning up your products. Take a look at them. What's a product you use the most? It might be your laundry detergent. We are in constant contact with our fabrics. We wear them, we sleep on them, we dry with them. Most of us are contacting fabric at every moment of the day. So laundry detergent is one that you should look at. Is it leaving residues that are constantly touching me? And is this residue going to cause a problem with my body? Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but every day over the years, the constant exposure, is your body someday going to say enough? So look at those ingredients, do a little research. There are some great resources out there that'll help you break down all the complex ingredients. The Environmental Working Group has a great healthy cleaning database. A lot of people know their Skin Deep database, which is for personal care, but they also have a healthy cleaning database, which will help break down. You can put in a product if it's a popular enough one. They have about 20,000 products in there now. It's pretty big. They'll specifically tell you, what the concerns are with the different ingredients. And then, of course, learning from people who have already dived into this already. Angela, your stream, itself is helping people to just dissect all of this crazy information that's out there.
Well, it is crazy, but the cool part is, in your new book, Soap and Soul, you have lab coat experiments. Tell us about that.
Oh, this is where I was having some fun. And so I thought, well, I know I'm a complete nerd when it comes to chemistry, but maybe there would be somebody else out there that would like to know. I don't just like being told what to do. I like finding out for myself why and how. And so I put these lab coat moments in the book where you can do experiments that with very normal stuff around the house to teach various and understand the various chemical concepts that I'm talking about. For example, don't mix ingredients. There's a lab coat moment where I intentionally have you combine Castile soap and vinegar. I want you to see what it does. I want you to feel it. It's not dangerous. It's just messy. Same thing with Castile soap and Epsom salt, a very common, therapeutic remedy, people say, or a bath to take. Put your Castile soap and your Epsom salts in your bathtub and have a soak. Don't do that. Again, not dangerous, just messy and really, really bad for your pipes, because functionally what you're creating is what we call soap scum, except you're creating it in mass from the reaction between the magnesium in the Epsom salts and the Castile soap. But these are controlled experiments in which I have you do these things. I have the reader do these things so they can see for themselves what's happening and understand the greater impact of these. I do all of these in my kitchen. I've actually got one going on in my kitchen right now, looking at the various cloudy points of the soap where the soap turns white. My family doesn't even question when they find, mason jars of soap in the fridge. As long as I've labeled them, which I did this time. Sometimes I
There's
forget.
Lisa again
Yeah.
doing some
Oh my
experiments.
goodness. Yeah. Did you know that grated bar soap looks a lot like cheese? The kids
That's
find that one.
awesome.
Yes.
Oh, that's funny. We've got so many questions here, you guys, and our time is running out. So we're going to have to come back, and I'm going to ask Lisa if she will jump in later whenever she gets a chance and answer some questions that are coming through here. I'm going to go back through this stream, and I'm going to answer as many of them as I can in the notes below. There are some really valid questions that I want to pay attention to. Can the sal suds be used on fake wood and laminate floors? The answer is yes, absolutely. Somebody says, can I use it on laminate flooring? We got a lot of the same kinds of questions. Somebody said, I never heard of sal suds. Where is it sold? It is available in, I believe, all of your online retailers. So check them out. It's available in all of your health food stores. It's now everywhere. And like I said, it's in 42 countries. So even if you're across the pond and you're our friends from far, far away, you can find it as well. I've seen it. I've taken pictures in stores over in London, and I sent them to Lisa. I'm like, look, you're everywhere. She's like, I know. It's really awesome. So, is it available online? Yes, it is. And so if you are in a rural area like my mom and dad, you can have it shipped to you as well. And so there, you guys have some fantastic questions. And I really appreciate that you've asked those questions of us here today, because I want to make sure that we do get those answered. So I do want to highlight the fact that Lisa's book is now available. And it is, let me see if I got a picture of it here. Yes, there it is. And that is, I got a comment here. I'm trying to minimize. Hang on one second. But Lisa, will you tell us where people can go to get a copy of your book?
Yes. So Soap and Soul is sold in booksellers everywhere. So your favorite one, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Books A Million, Target.com is also selling it. We're selling it through the Dr. Bronner website as well. And it is available in a hardcover, an ebook, and an audiobook. And I got to read the audiobook for it myself, which was super fun too.
Oh, that's so awesome. I'm so proud of you for that. That's fantastic.
That's where I learned to pronounce. I had to read my own writing. I was like, who wrote this? And I'm having to say, mesoithosiazolinone. I got it.
Well, there you go for writing it. But I'm so proud of you for writing this book. This is a book that is long overdue. And I want to highlight the fact that it's got a bunch of really awesome personal stories in there that make you go, oh, wait a second, that's me. And it tells a story that I think many of us can relate to at the different phases of our journey. And Lisa said one thing that I want to leave you with today. She said, start where you are today and make a tiny change, and then make another tiny change. You don't have to change everything at once, but as you're starting to pay attention to changing a fragrance or changing out a particular cleaning chemical for one that doesn't have the dyes or the formaldehyde or whatever, start out with one, remove it and change it, and then go on to the next one. Start small, start where you are, and then move out.
That's right. That's right. It's the best we can do is start where we are with what we have, and then take the next step after that.
All right. soapandsoulbook.com. This is Lisa Bronner. You guys, I'm so excited. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you, Lisa, for your time and attention. You are amazing.
Well, thank you so much, Angela. It was my privilege to be here.